Hello and welcome. This is day one of our 7-day awareness challenge, which is happening over on the Revel in Your Rhythm and Spunk Facebook page. And today we are starting on the element of fire. We have gone through the hydration challenge, where you started drinking more water and becoming aware of your water sources and working to get the cleanest water possible into your body. Maybe letting go of some of those other drinks that may not have been as hydrating for you. And then with our second challenge, we explored the element of air and really becoming calmer in the body, using air through breath as a way to center and get focused and provide an off switch for your cortisol so that you can reduce your flight or fight symptoms. And that is all happening through your breath work that you're doing. So these challenges are based on 4 fundamental principles of releasing toxins in a very nurturing and easy way for your body. We focus on hydration, breathing, awareness. We're going to be looking at behavioral psychology a bit this week and our food choices and our food dialogue. And then lastly, in our last week, we're going to be exploring nutrition. That'll be the earth element. So you should be continuing to add on through each of these challenges. We're sort of layering on improvements in our lifestyle. And if this is your first challenge, feel free to participate this week, jump in, but also go back and listen to the other videos. They're between 15 and 20 minutes long, and they're going to help give you the foundation of the hydration and the thoughts behind that, as well as the foundation of breathing and why that's so important for your body. So 6 to 8 glasses of spring water, smaller for smaller people, bigger for bigger people, maybe about 3 liters. Spring water or ceramic filtered water is ideal. So go back and listen to why. And, remember, this is a detox program, but it's not like your grandma's detox program. This detox program is as much about replacing as it is about removing. And it's because it's just as important to add the good stuff as it is to vacation from the bad stuff. So keep that in mind as we're going forward. These are gentle ways. We're not using weird beverage concoctions that are gonna, kick and flush things out of your liver in a really forceful way before your body's even ready to release that. We're not going to be using weird supplements to do any of that either. We're really focusing on just being very supportive and creating some lifestyle shifts that will provide you with a cleaner environment so that your body can let go. That's real simple. So again, with your breathing, you're going to want to be doing box breathing. This is an example of how to do that, and you can go back into the last video to explore that further and get instruction on how to do box breathing. It's really incredible. It's life-changing. Last year, I went through some very difficult times, and if it weren't for the box breathing, I'm not sure if I would have survived. It was a rough time period. We talked about flow states in the last video of day 6 of our breathe challenge. And we did so because as you are doing this kind of breathing and you're providing the hydration for your body starts to relax and you're able to get more into flow states. And flow states are wonderful for a lot of different reasons, for learning and motivation and for creativity, but they also produce these incredible chemicals. So these chemicals are really helpful for folks that have been overly stressed, that have been nutritionally deprived, or, living on subpar hydration and, a real lack of care around breathing and calm activities for your body. So highly encourage flow states as a way to help with mood, especially. And for me, being in flow states has always helped with keeping out of depression. And when I wasn't actively in flow states through my work or through physical activity or through mental activity, I lost access to some of these really important chemicals that really help to elevate my mood. So I highly recommend it. And because it increases you wanting more flow states, which increases creativity and learning and, just showing up in your life and being present for the challenges that you're facing and the activities that you want to participate in and the work that you want to do in the world. So today, as we get into looking at and exploring fire as our element, fire is what fuels us in our cells. It's that energy that provides all of the function that we need to get around and move in our bodies. And, for the most part, if you're following the typical Western diet, it's going to be sort of an opposite of this particular graph. It's going to be a lot of carbs, and depending upon how old you are, like myself, 15, 20 years ago, fat was considered the evil in your diet, and low fat diets were a huge fad. I've been on so many different diets in my life. I actually had to sit down and try to count them all. The last count was about 13, which is really frustrating and really sad because none of them ever got to some of the core issues. One, that I was a celiac and that I literally had an autoimmune reaction to some certain grains. And two, I was allergic to dairy. And, none of the diets that I ever did ever got to the core of that. I learned I was celiac about 8 years ago. And then I learned that I had a casein allergy a couple years after that. And so I eliminated things, but I never had quite figured out the supportive foundations that we're talking about in our challenges these 4 weeks that really helped to support my gut biome, my gut bacteria, to heal my leaky gut, which was something I had destroyed over decades of autoimmune problems that were related to that. And I'll tell you, this WildFit Challenge is foundational, not just for celiacs, but for folks that have all kinds of reactions to food and find that the typical high carb diet is not giving them a sustained energy source. By learning how to eat seasonally, and by seasons, we're talking about our evolutionary cycles of food on the planet and what was available and when it was available, and how these cycles put us into different types of fuel burning. So in our evolution, we had times in our life where we experienced a more ketogenic diet. And so that was a way that we released weight naturally as we would come out of winter. And we would have a more green ketogenic diet. And that evolved in through the seasons, and there would be other types of foods that were available that were more high in carb and would add fats and help us get ready and prepare for the winter. And so we had this really beautiful cycling of fat that would come through our body that we would use as a fuel source and then store when we didn't need it. And that's what happens when you're eating high carbs. Your body doesn't need fat for fuel. And so it switches to grabbing that glucose and insulin and creating insulin and using that as a fuel source for your body. And when that happens, your body looks at the fats that are in your diet and says, oh, I don't need those right now. I've got this really quick, easy fuel source. I'm going to take that and I'm going to stick it here on my thighs, or here in my jowls, or here under my arms. So, wherever those lovely storage systems that you have, they're different for everyone. And it puts them there first, and it also takes them off there first or last. So, it's a little bit of a challenge, but being able to tap into a ketogenic fuel source for your body, and burning fat as a fuel source is something that we call in the WildFit way flipping your switch. And so flipping your switch is something that's a little more, high level. It'll come later in the 90-day challenge when you decide to go forward and play with me in that challenge. But for now, we're going to look at how we can set our bodies up to really succeed in switching, in flipping our switch. So we're going to be exploring fruit as a way of really supporting that high carb piece. So what we're going to do this week in terms of the adding, the quality and the quantity that we're going to be bringing to this challenge is that I want you to start eating fruit for breakfast on an empty stomach. So other food before fruit, no way, don't do it. And the reason being is that fruit is meant to pass through your body very quickly. And when you have other food that you've had in there, like a bagel or, your eggs and your bacon or whatever it is that you're having, your chickpea scramble, whatever it is, save that for a little bit after eating the fruit. Go ahead and get yourself a nice big bowl of fruit. Have it on an empty stomach, because that's going to pass through you pretty quickly, and it's going to provide you some good fuel. The normal glucose, insulin type of fuel source. We're going to go ahead and play with that this week. But the change that we're going to make, the challenge piece this week, is that we're going to take a vacation from refined sugars and sweeteners. Woohoo! So far, this challenge, these last couple of weeks have been pretty basic, pretty easy, just adding things in, keeping track, getting, trying on some new things and seeing how that feels for your body, going to the bathroom a bit more, maybe with the hydration. But you're probably starting to get into a groove with that if you've been following that every day. Now we're going to start to get into some pushing of some buttons. As we start to take away these other sugars, these refined sugars, we're going to notice the body's going to start to rebel a little bit. You're going to start to feel some cravings. And having that bowl of fruit in the morning is going to help to curb some of that. It's going to continue to provide you with your normally scheduled sort of glucose, insulin, fuel sources that you're used to having. But by removing the refined sugars and the sweeteners, your body is going to start to have some dialogues with you. And so the awareness piece of this week really comes in as you start to say no to sugar. So I understand that your life is going to present you with some challenges as we go along. And there are going to be times when you have a go-to, and you're going to want to go to whatever that food is that you go to. Generally, it's going to be something that is a high carb food. That just generally tends to happen with folks when they have emotional hungers. And really, we're getting into our emotional hungers at this point. We've talked a little bit about the 6 hungers, thirst being a hunger with hydration, and low blood sugar hunger as well. This emotional hunger comes in as a point generally to a reaction of what's happening in your life, where you are facing something and emotionally you are trying to replace that lack in your life with a food source. And so You know, you'll have go-to foods that are going to come up, and your body's going to say, you know, in the face of the challenge, you know, a rough day or a fun party or whatever it happens to be. Have this this here particular donut, or, you know, the piece of cake, or the half a pint of ice cream, or whatever it is. Your body's going to be poking you to try that and to have that, because it's going to start looking for those sugars more and more as you are starting to read your packaged goods and noticing where your sugars are coming in. You're going to notice this is a challenge, because sugar's in everything. I mean, literally, like even tomato sauce. So this week is going to be difficult for you in that you have to be aware. You have to show up as you're shopping and you're buying packaged goods, because if it's not the apple, you know that something's been added. And so please read the backs of the labels, look what's in there. And, you know, if it's fruit-based, it's okay. We're not removing anything fruit. We're going to leave in our fruits. But all the other things that you can't pronounce, that, you know, maltodextrin and, you know, all these other types of sugars, fructose and sucrose, and yeah. Anyway, I'm going to give you a list of 61 names for sugar on our Facebook group. So take a look for that, because it's rather fascinating. You can screenshot it on your iPhone and keep it with you when you go shopping, or your Samsung or whatever phone you use. But really helpful, because you're going to have an awakening this week as you start to explore how much sugar you've been eating unbeknownst to yourself. So this is a fun thing, because you get to learn things about yourself, and you're going to learn, if you don't already know, where those emotional hungers come from as they creep up during your day or into your evening, and the types of habits that you might have. And for now, I just want you to be aware of them. I just want you to notice them as they come up. And, you know, this isn't about willpower. This isn't about trying to fight your dialogue. It's really about being aware of it. But as you can, try to be aware of it, and also see how you can accommodate it in a different way. Look at if it's, you know, you're alone in the evening and you're bored and you're watching television and you want to, you know, put something in your mouth. And that's, you know, that's a pretty big habit of many of us. And I've been there. So maybe look at why you're having the emotional hunger. And if you're lonely, maybe instead of picking up the cookies or the ice cream, instead you go for some nuts, or you pick up the phone and call a family member or a good friend of yours and say hello and just have a chat. Whatever it is that's coming up for you, just learn to be aware of it. Go ahead and use your box breathing to breathe through it, and look at ways that you can support yourself in a more functional way, rather than turning to the non-functional foods that you're used to. This is going to be your time to really come into this challenge. So I really encourage you this week to connect with us on Facebook. If you can make it onto these calls, the next 2 calls we'll be having, I would love to chat with you about your dialogue and work through some of that with you. It's really an opportune time for you, and can make some pretty significant headway in things that have held you back in the past, from becoming who you truly are and who you really want to become. So I look forward to going through this challenge with you this week, this awareness challenge, having more fruit, letting go of the sugars, keeping an eye out for them in your food buying habits, and connecting with me on Facebook so that we can really talk through and support you during this time. So with that, I will see you on Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel. And we will go further into our exploration of the fire element and how we can become more aware in our lives. Alrighty, that's it for now. Thanks so much. Have a beautiful day.